Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 143 of Explode, your expert business show, brought to you by gtex.org.uk. I'm your host, Simone Vincenzi, the Experts Strategist, and this is the podcast for experts who want to become the ultimate authority in their niche while making an impact in the world. And today I have the pleasure to interview the one and only Ajit Nawalkha. Ajit is an entrepreneur, business coach, founder of Evercoach, author of the Book of Coaching, and co-founder of Mindvalley, which is one of the biggest publishers in the personal development space. Ajit built his reputation the old-fashioned way, with persistence, grit, and an unshakable determination to succeed. Having been raised in India, sharing a roof with the 21 other members of his family, Ajit went way beyond what he was expected to achieve. Today, he believes that when it comes to creating a business and a life you love, it's all about doing less, not more. And his methods have been proven to work again and again and again. And in this episode with Ajit, we talk about how to sell with love, how to create an amazing experience for your clients, and how Mindvalley creates products and services that sell themselves. Was probably one of the best interviews that we ever did on this show. So make sure you listen until the end. You can read the interview transcript, get the bonus resources on our website at www.gtex.org.uk/143. And also you can connect with Ajit and download and be part of the free masterclass on how to build a super coaching business. Now, you know that every now and then, generally every week, once a week in our weekly episode, I share with you the tool of the day, which is something that I use that make my business better or my life better. And today, I'm sharing with you Grammarly. It's an automatic AI app which works on desktop and mobile that automatically spells and grammar check all your document, posts, articles, on your desktop and mobile. Is absolutely amazing. Even particular for me. I mean, English is not my first language. I'm Italian, and I make consistent spelling mistake consistently. And that helped me massively to make sure that when I send out an email and when I do my daily email or when I do my 4 or 5 posts a day on different social media platforms, then at least I can limit the spelling mistakes and the grammar mistakes that I'm making in that instance. There is a free version and also there is a paid version. Check it out, Grammarly. The link is in the show notes. And again, there is no affiliate link in this product. It's something just that I use, and I highly recommend you to use it too if you know that grammar and spelling is not your strong suit. Also, if you haven't downloaded our Selling from the Stage checklist, you want to make a presentation, make 6 figures from event in one single day, create a seminars that sells every single time, get the Ultimate Selling from the Stage checklist, which is the most comprehensive checklist to create a pitch that sells without using sleazy and manipulative techniques. So you can get it in the show notes. Make sure you get it now. And join our private Facebook group. If you want to be part of a vibrant community of experts, all there to help and support each other, then make sure that you join our private Facebook group, Explode Your Expert Biz Community. You'll find it on Facebook. The link is in the show notes. And every week I'm doing an exclusive training for you. So something we have coming up is how to go and become a contributor for Forbes magazine. And we have more and more. So join the community. You will absolutely love this free training that we do. If you haven't subscribed yet to the show, make sure you subscribe right now. And at the end of the show, I would really appreciate if you can leave us a review. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot also because it will help us spread the word of this podcast to many more people. Now, thank you very much for listening to this introduction. It's time to get the music started, and it's time to listen to how Mindvalley creates amazing products with Ajit Nawalkha. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. I'm here with the one and only Ajit Nawalkha. How you doing, Ajit?
I'm doing fantastic, Simone. So excited to be here.
Fantastic. I listened to, as I said before, I listened to one of your recent interviews on Founder Podcast, and I was like, no, man. I need to have him on the show. That interview was too good to be
Oh,
just
thank
dead
you.
on that podcast. So,
Oh, thank you.
and of course, I see all your Facebook ads anyway popping on my feed. So your targeting is working. You can say. But before we get started talking about growing an expert business and in particular focusing on the product, how do we create great product? Why don't you share with us a bit more about yourself and your story?
So thank you. Thank you for bringing me on, Simone. I'm glad you enjoyed the interview at the Founder Podcast. So I come from India. I grew up in a small little town in India called Jaipur. I was born there. My family still lives there. My parents, live there. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in a house of about 23 other people. In India, we call it a joint family. It's almost like your extended family living together. So my cousins living in the same house. My grandparents lived in the same house. My grandparents' cousins live in the same house. We all lived in the same house. Which, when you live like that, what happens, especially because we didn't really have a big house, it was just like a regular house, but we had 23 people kind of like squeezed into a space, right? And when you have so many people living together, it's very interesting growing up because you never really have space for
Yeah.
yourself. Like you don't have abundance of space, and we didn't, of course, have abundance of wealth, which is why we were living in a small space like that. And that's kind of how I grew up. And that early on in my life conditioned me to think about how do I want to get out of that reality. But it only came real to me, the real path to come out of that reality, when one of my high school teachers kind of asked me, it was the morning news that I was reading to like we have these practices sometimes in schools, like you read the morning news and everybody has to do it once in a while. So I did one of those times, and
Yeah.
one of my teachers said, "Hey, Ajit, if you choose to be, you can be a news anchor." Something to that line, right? And the thing that stayed with me was, firstly, nobody had shown that type of confidence in me before. Before that, what had happened was, like everybody in India, my parents wanted me to be an engineer because that's
Sounds
how
like a
all Indians
cliche.
are. Yeah, it was total stereotypical. It was like either be an engineer, a doctor, or an accountant. And I was definitely like I was on the track to do that, but that wasn't really my passion. I loved computers, but I wasn't really somebody who wanted to be an engineer and want to sit behind a desk all day long.
Right.
So I was like, hey, but until then, it was almost that it was true to me that I was reacting to life. I thought life happened to us. And so anything that I was doing in life was mostly to tackle life in a way to go, how can I react to this situation? How can I react to that situation? And whatever best come out of that situation was my hope was that I will come out on top after reacting to life. And when that teacher suggested that, and of course mentored me after that, I realized that I could actually choose to be whatever I want to be. And because I can choose to be whatever I want to be, I have to make decisions for myself in context of what do I really want to be, right? And that kind of changed the course of my life. I started also listening to a lot more people outside of my reality. I started engaging with mentors, coaches, teachers, educators. And as life progressed, more and more people like that started to show up in my life. Sometimes I hired them. Sometimes they would just come in for temporary time to just give advice. Sometimes they would be through books. Sometimes they would be through programs. But basically, my life transformed because of coaches, teachers, educators, mentors that's decided to say, we will invest our time, energy, and resources in you. And if you choose to be, you can be whoever you want to be. And
And
that kind
were you receptive? Sorry if I interrupt you, but were you receptive to that kind of help? Because I remember that when I was how old were you when you are talking about this right now?
well, I was in my teens.
Right. So I remember when I was in my teens, I had a lot of people that were around me and believed in me, but I was
Mm-hmm.
pushing them away. I said,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, that's my life. I live my life in my own way. I don't want to listen to you. And I put myself in some very critical situations because not listening, but I wasn't
Mhm.
receptive. Were you receptive at that moment?
I was, and I think I was in a little bit different situation. I was almost getting permission to live the life the way I want to
Right.
by listening to these people, because I wasn't looking at them as an instruction manual. I wasn't looking at them as somebody who was telling me do A, B, C. I was looking at them as people who would give me a broad frame to how to think about a thing,
Hmm.
right? So I was receiving insight, knowledge, information as somebody who is giving me just directions, not necessarily step by step. So
Yeah.
I never really listen. I still don't. To go, I'm a person who likes to ask the question why, right? So my favorite question is why. Why does something work? Why does something not work? Why do this needs to be done this way or not that way? And because of my questioning attitude of the why, what happens is I tend to always look for what the person's really saying
Hmm.
versus what they may be communicating on a surface level. And that just seems like that's something that was built in me because of my father. Because my father has a very questioning personality too.
Right.
He's somebody who even if my mom's really religious, my father is not. He was a very spiritual human being, but not a religious human being. And since we were kids, he always encouraged us to ask the question why and make our own decisions. Like he would say, hey, I don't need you to follow a religion. I don't need you to follow a path. What I do want you to do is make your own decisions and find out what is right for you, and be ready to argue it if you are going to stand for something. So we had to build our own ability to be able to not only question but be able to present with an argument when challenged around a question, right? So that was something that as an attitude
I
I
see.
got from my
Yeah.
father a lot, and so that's where I got started. So I even if people would give me instructions, I would still probably not really hear if they would tell me only an instruction thing without being able to
You would
explain
be
it.
like, why?
Yeah, why should I do
Why?
it?
Why should I
Why,
listen to
right?
this? Why? Tell me.
And why do I do
Explain.
it this way? Exactly. Why do I do it this way? Why not any other way? Why, if this is the outcome we want to get,
Yeah.
is there a better way to do it? Right. So that's kind of where I am still at. Like still that's how I show up in a conversation is like I'm like, okay, I'm listening always, but I'm listening for not to follow, but more to get the insight
Yeah.
on what's really the experience that we're talking about. So that kind of, so I was pretty open-minded in that context, that I was always listening for what is it that I can learn from this, and because of that, it changed my life. It changed my trajectory. I became very even more receptive to even education through books and programs eventually, because that's how I started to learn from. You can say like one of those quotes like I learned from standing on the shoulders of
The
giants. I
Giants. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know who said that, but somebody really intelligent must have, and that's kind of what I do now. There's always a stack of books that is behind my desk that I am going through, and I'm learning through different areas of life, and so forth. So that's kind of where I am at right now. So
So
that's kind of my story.
you built many companies in your career. One of the biggest and most famous is also Mindvalley, where you are where you're partnered with Vishen Lakiani. Which actually I was I'm chatting now with his assistant to get him on the show. Was that literally today? I was having a chat with there, but you then did you decide because part of your journey was also becoming a coach yourself and becoming an expert in your field and building your personal brand and getting out there, did you
Mhm.
decide to do that before, after, during, which kind of moment you had the call where you say I want to help people, I want to work with people?
So I was a part of Mindvalley. So I ran Mindvalley for a year, and
Yeah.
before that I built the marketing for Mindvalley, products, technology. I worked in all areas, in different phases of the company. So I joined as an intern about 10 years ago,
Yes.
and then I quit the company. I started a bunch of companies, sold it back to Mindvalley, came back in Mindvalley about 7 years ago, and ever since have been partners in different capacity with the company. And during my journey as any curious person would do, I would always go, what's the next level? What's the next stage for this, right? And I would always question where I am in my journey and how I am personally, not just professionally. because that's a question that we often tend to miss, that especially when we're professionally really, really successful. What happens is you tend to forget about the personal life or the personal elements of our life, right? So I think I want to say I was 31 when I became the CEO of Mindvalley. This is about 2 years, 3 years ago. And when I became the CEO of Mindvalley, we had a good year. But as I was questioning my life in that year, I realized that everything else had started to disintegrate. So I was so focused on building this company, which is beautiful because it's a really powerful message for the world. It's a really good company. It does really good job in supporting individuals and people and so forth. And for the listeners, if you don't know about Mindvalley, just go to mindvalley.com and you will see what I'm talking about. I almost resist to even call it a company. It's more like a movement than a company. It does run for a profit, but more of a movement and less of a company. And as we were building the company, I realized that me personally, even if I was trying to spread these ideas to people, I wasn't listening myself what I needed to listen at that time, and that got me to have a conversation with Vishen, who's the founder of the company, and say, I think it's time for me to start doing something that was out of the realm of what we do here, and I'm willing to take that risk. Because at that time, what had happened was my personal life had collapsed as well. My partner and I were splitting. My health was at the worst stage that it was. My family relations were really bad. I was barely talking to my family, and all I was filling it up with, but that void that was in my personal life was getting filled by work. But that wasn't really healthy because I was almost not acknowledging and facing my dragons in a way, or my demons, not dragons in a way. And so the first step to that was for me to acknowledge that and be able to communicate that to my partner. And so we did. We communicated that, and we found that that's being the CEO of the company is probably not the right thing for me emotionally, spiritually. And so at that young stage, even when I was leading one of the most wonderful companies on the planet, as a person, I had to take a decision of saying, this is not right for me personally. There's nothing wrong with the company, for me personally. And so at that time, there was the idea of Evercoach, which we had just experimented with. It was just a little community with one page, and we were just trying to see if we can support the people who support the message. So it was almost like, you go, we want to be able to impact 1 billion lives positively. Now, if we want to do that, we can either be selfish and say, we'll be the only ones who will do it, or we can find other experts, teachers, educators, coaches, and say, hey, here is what we know about impacting lives, and here this is for you, and now you create your own impact. Now, what we're doing in this context is now it's about a ripple effect. It's not only about saying, here, we are the ones who will change the world. We're saying, no, we are the ones who will change the world.
Yeah.
So let's create more collaborators and be able to empower these collaborators in the process so they can also have their ripple effect. And as we all have a ripple effect, hopefully we would be able to create greater change in a faster pace. And that gave birth to Evercoach. And that's where my focus went at that time. Like I said, I was always excited about coaches, teachers, educators, because that's where my life turned, right?
Yes.
So I'm personally passionate about it. And that's where I said, okay, fine, that's what I want to do the rest of my life, is to be able to support people who are willing to put themselves out there, take that risk, and be able to say, well, I am going to support the change in the world. I am going to support in different dimensions, whatever
that's
is.
one of the reasons why I always resonated with Mindvalley, with Evercoach since I found out about it. Because so I think I started following Mindvalley about 7-8 years ago. So that I had one of my first meditation published on Omvana years and years ago. And what I loved is the community aspect. In fact, my company is called GTEX, and GTEX stands for Growing Together Exponentially, because everything we do it together. And it's all for the growth, for our growth, the growth of our client, and the growth of humanity. And I have to say that Mindvalley was a huge inspiration for me to set the company when I was 23 and I didn't have a clue about what the heck I was going to do. So I owe you guys big time.
Totally.
And
awesome. Thank you.
Now you went and built Evercoach. and started building Evercoach. And right now, Evercoach is one of the largest portal for training for coaches, for speakers, for experts in their field. I've seen that you guys do trainings on building a business, on creating events, on creating retreats. You have almost everything under one place to support them, right?
Absolutely. And the reason why we did that is, again, like, and we were going to talk about it in just a minute as the second part of the conversation today, is when you go to a space, you try to see, okay, what is it that the space really misses, right? What is it that we can do to empower a community, right? These are the kind of questions you should be asking when you go into business. So if you're an expert, you want to ask the question, okay, what is my tribe really needing? What is it that I'm going to help with? How am I going to create transformations, right? So we asked the same questions. We said, okay, why is it that teaching is a very noble profession, right? Teaching, and when I say teaching, it means experts as well, right? Because you're teaching essentially as an expert,
absolutely.
Right? So teaching is a really noble profession, and it's one of those professions which ideally, because it's so empowering for the outcome that it creates for the client, should be very well paid as well. But if you meet most of the trainers and coaches and experts in different fields, you would see that they somehow are always in this state of challenge themselves. State of challenge financially, state of challenge impact-wise, state of challenge in re-enrollment conversations. So we were like, what the heck is happening? Why is this happening? And then we realized, because what happened, and it's nothing right or wrong, every community has to go through its own stages, and we all fight our challenges. It's not to say there's anything wrong. It was just different stage of reality for experts and coaches at that time. But what had happened was, most of the education that was given to experts at that time and coaches to that time was to say, here is how you run a Facebook ad, here is how you make more money, here is how you do this, how you do that, right? But mostly around saying that there's only one thing and one thing that matters, that is conversion, right?
Yeah.
How do you convert? How do you draw most money out of a client? And that fundamentally is flawed from the context of saying that that's not what business is, that's what salesmanship is, right? In a business ecosystem, salesman is one role that is there in the team, right? It's not the company, it's not the business. A salesman alone, which sells you anything, doesn't really create a business, right? It's just a transaction that it creates, right? A business is actually fundamentally, business is about the product. It's about what is it that the person that is going to have an experience with you as an expert, as a coach, what is the experience looking like? What is the outcome that the person is getting, and how effective are you in getting the outcome, right? Now, again, you can't tie yourself to the outcome of the person, because you're more like a container, and the content is the person that's coming in to your to your expertise, to your coaching, to your consulting, right? So you're a container. You can only influence that much as a container, right? But at the same point in time, did you work on the container, right? And the point really was, at that point, was that nobody was actually telling people that first you need to fix the container so you can at least get a result to your client, and then we'll talk about how to get more sales, right? What if your product is flawed? If your product is flawed, there is no way you can generate a greater revenue in your business.
Just get more refunds. You just get more refunds.
Yeah. More refunds, dissatisfied clients who come in, they get excited about your sales process. They say, yes, I'll sign up. And then they sign up and they never re-enroll in a conversation with you. They never go and say, hey, that company is awesome. There's no, like, think about it like this. You came to Mindvalley 7 years ago, 8 years ago, is what you just said. Right? 7, 8 years ago, you interacted at Mindvalley. You remember it till date, and you have a good experience with the company.
Absolutely.
For 7, 8 years, right? Why?
Consistently.
Because we always work on our product. It's like, what's the outcome that our client get? Even if they just read our emails, right? Even if they never buy a thing, they must have a particular experience with us. And that's the intent that we work with, which is why, while all other personal development companies would seemingly feel like, well, what's happened to this guy or that girl, and they disappeared from the scene, or they don't seem to be doing that well. All of a sudden, Mindvalley is like on a hockey stick, upward growth. It's not because we are brilliant in marketing. No, we're just amazing at creating products that people love. We just really consistently go, okay, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? Even if it's one of the top best product in the space, we go, how can we better that? Right? And because our products are consistently amazing and that are a little bit more amazing than that, what happens is that as a client, you constantly are just waiting for us to launch another product, because you're like, the last one I did got me this result. I want to do the next one because these guys are amazing.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's the same philosophy we brought to Evercoach. We said, okay, let's not only focus on saying, yes, you need to learn how to sell. Well, like I said, it's a business, right? You got to know how to sell and you got to know how to create a great product. But we said our first focus will be, can we make you a great coach? Can we give you the principles of becoming a phenomenal coach? If you become a phenomenal coach, if you become a phenomenal educator, if you become a phenomenal expert, what will happen is that the sales and marketing, A, becomes easy for you because you know what your product is and you know the results of your product. And when you can tell the results of your product, your clients are excited about you and you are excited about selling it yourself, right? You're like, damn, I know this will do this. I am not bullshitting my way to
Faking
a
till you make
sale.
it.
Yeah, you can't do that. Not in education, right? You
Yep.
can fake it till you make it in context of confidence and so forth, right? To be able, like, I know sometimes you got to do that fake it till you make it because you're not confident all the time, but you're about to get on the podcast or you're about to get on the stage. You bloody might as well fake it, right? Because at that time, that's all you got. Like, that's all your ammo. But when you're building a business, when it's about fundamentals business, there is no great business that is built on a flawed product.
Yep.
The
Absolutely.
product needs to be good, right? And that's where we said that's what Evercoach needs to be. First thing first is work on the product, which is why at Evercoach you will look at that everything is in context of three different principles. Three principles, and we say you do these three things well, and you've got a great business for yourself, you've got great impact, and you will have a great life, right? And the principles are very simple. The principle is you, your methodology, and your business. These are three simple principles. What does that mean? You simply means you always need to keep working on yourself. Because when you work on yourself, guess what happens? If you're working on yourself, you'll always create a better product because now you have a better experience yourself of life. You're on a journey yourself, irrespective of what work you do. You could be doing business coaching, accounting coaching, you could be doing fitness coaching, whatever that is. If you're working on yourself, you will constantly improve your product by default, by the nature of that you are improving, right? So that's the first thing. You got to work on yourself, and that's the first thing. Never stop working on yourself. All right, the second thing, very important for a great expert business and for exponential growth, is to work on your product. You constantly need to upgrade your methodology. Fundamental mistake. What happens? I have this life experience. I will become an expert in this life experience. Now I will just talk about this life experience. Well, if you just have one method, you have stopped your growth and you have limited yourself from understanding that the world evolves every single day. There is new research every
Just
single
stay
day.
stuck at that level. You have no
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
no growth, and then the other people will be like, well, the other person seems to keep moving forward. I'm gonna work with this other guy because you're there stuck 5 years ago.
yeah. So, but that's what most people do, right? They
Yep.
get stuck there and they just stay there because they're like, oh, that's my methodology. Yes, but methodologies need to evolve with time, with research, with new discoveries, with new
But why
experiences,
do
with
you
new
think they
client
don't want to
experience.
do it? Why do you think they stop?
Well, because they think that's what works, right? And that's the story they've told themselves,
Right.
right? That's the story that they tell them. So they go, oh no, I know, like, so for example, hypothetically, I know how human body works. I'm a fitness coach, and this is the 4-step process that I have, right? The problem is the moment you go, this is the 4-step process, and you associate yourself so strongly to it that the 4-step process cannot become a 5-step process, which happens, which is why methodologies don't evolve, is because they go, oh, but now my name is associated with this thing. Yes, your name is associated with this thing, but nobody says you can't evolve this thing,
Yeah.
right? The thing evolves, must evolve. If it doesn't evolve, it dies. And that's exactly what happens with experts, coaches, and educators, is their methodology gets stuck. And as their methodology gets stuck, it starts to decline because it's not adapting to time. Because every day we're discovering new things. And even if we are not discovering new things about human beings, you as a person are discovering new things.
Yep.
And if you are, share that in your product. You see, one of the greatest, all the best entrepreneurs you know, the one thing that they do, which most of the experts that don't see exponential growth in their business don't do, is they don't tweak their products. The best entrepreneurs are always tweaking their product.
Yep.
They're always looking at, okay, what can I add? What can I delete? What's working? What's not working? What feedback am I getting? What feedback I'm not getting? How can I get more feedback when the product's not, if I'm not getting enough feedback, how can I get more feedback, right? They're
Yep.
always looking to better their product. And because of that, they launch the same product every year, right? It's not because they don't have, that's a new product every single time they launch it, most of the time, right? Unless there's some product that is like just tested for a particular market and that's what that market
That's
needs to
it.
do for a
Yeah.
while. and then they are not focused on that product themselves. They're like, okay, so that product is just serving a market for a little bit of time, and then we are creating this new product which has the evolved methodology. It's like almost when like we wrote the book of coaching. The book of coaching is going to evolve much slower than anything else because that's a research document of already 4 years of research. It's harder to evolve that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it needs to evolve. So every single year we'll have an updated version, but it won't look dramatically different. It'll look a little bit different.
Because you will have another year of research, and you have more data, and you have more experiences, and you have the more case studies and more results. Exactly. Then you can keep it up to date.
Exactly, and you want to keep doing that, and that's how your product gets
and also your clients, the people that read the book, will give you their feedback. You will learn from that feedback, and then making it better time after time after time.
And that's what needs to happen, but that's what doesn't happen as much in today's times, and that's what the challenge is with today's expert businesses most of the time, is that we get stuck in this thing that we've associated ourselves with without realizing that that thing needs to grow. And if that thing doesn't grow, doesn't evolve, it's going to stagnate, and when it's stagnating, it's going to die.
Now, I'm curious to know. What do you have a checklist or a mental note of what makes a great product? Because we have been talking about innovation, we have been talking about improving, making it better. But where do we start in the first place to create a product which blows our audience away?
So it will take me a day to talk about what really conforms a really good product, but what I can give you are some footnotes, some things that most people don't consider as much as, but maybe if that comes in consideration, it probably will help in elevating the outcomes that the product gets, right? So firstly is always be looking out for what's the feedback that the product gets, right? We use something that's called a Net Promoter Score, an NPS score. NPS is a very normal technology, is a term very normally known in the technology space, in the Silicon Valley space and so forth, is where they are always looking for how likely are our customers to recommend our product to their friends, right? That's kind of what the measure of NPS is. And NPS is usually it would be done through a survey. We'll send out an email which will say something to the tune of, how likely are you to recommend this product to your friends or something like that, right? And then they get to rate it between either 1 to 100 or 1 to 10, depending on the scale that the person wants to use. It's kind of the same logic, but let's say it's 1 to 10, and anything that is over a 5 is a good number because it shows you that they're likely to recommend, right? Now, of course, you want to aim for a 7 or an 8, but sometimes, especially in the expert education business, because the results are not consistent, you would have inconsistent scale. Because, it's like I said, you're the container, the content changes, and so the outcomes are a little variant. So you can't, usually it's very hard to see an NPS score of 9 or a 10 in expert coaching type of business. Coaching maybe, but expert business very, very hard because coaching has a one-on-one interaction. So it's a little bit more possible to achieve a 9 out of 10, otherwise it's not. So anyways, that's a good measure to know if your product's doing the job it needs to do or not. Right, so that's kind of afterthought. It's once you've released the product, that's what you do. When you're creating the product, what you want to do is you always want to look at the scientific understanding of even if the idea is not as scientific, right? So what happens often is that, let's say especially in the spiritual space, when a coach or an educator is in the spiritual space, a lot of times you want people to believe because you said something, right? And when you do that, what happens is, as a person who is actually taking the product, I have to get tremendous amount of belief to follow you. Whereas if I could rationalize and back it with research, what happens is now it's easier for me to believe you because now you're coming with hard data, right? So if you can back your outcome or back your exercise or back your content with scientific or some kind of data that proves it, it gives more confidence in the consumer's mind to be able to go, oh, I see why it works. Right? It retains a lot more information because now we have not only spoken to their creative mind, but to their logical mind.
Absolutely. I think that right now a lot of people, they focus a lot. And I'm thinking while you're talking right now about the way I market my products and also create them is really about getting people excited, getting people talking about results. But I don't focus too much on the hard data. That's my limitation as a person. I'm more like the creative type of person. Like, don't get me like case studies and so on. So I see that that's something that everyone here can improve by listening to this show is look at not only the case studies and the testimonials you get for your clients, but also the other scientific, deeper, stronger evidence that then can get your clients to just be in peace with their decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The second thing is to be able to challenge your clients. Because what happens often is we give content and then we leave it to them to really be able to make it a practice. If you can give them a challenge to make it a practice, it allows them to retain that knowledge and actually bring it into their lives if that's possible, right? So that's kind of where you could either do that with tools like exercises that they do right after, or you can literally program your product or your service in a way where it's a weekly activity. Yeah. Right, and it's technically it's very possible. You can do it on multiple platforms, but basically you're saying every week is a different unlock, and they must do certain exercise in that week for them to experience the outcome of what you just taught. So what happens is it becomes more than just a thought that you kind of blattered out to them. It became like a real thing, because now they go, oh, that's the idea, and here's the anchoring of that idea because of the activity or the challenge that they did that week. Right? So that is the second thing that we can be mindful of and incorporate in our programs for us to be able to have greater result for our clients. And as they anchor it, as they get a result, usually it allows them to be able to really create a transformation. Now, again, like I said, we can go on for a day talking about it, and I don't know how much time we have left. But the last bit, which definitely can change the game for educators today, is to create communities. Mm-hmm. If you can create a solid, powerful community around your product, it will change the way people approach your product. It will also bring, and you have to be open about that, but as an expert, you're probably already open about that you have to be open about criticism sometimes, which will come openly. But what it will also do is, because of that community, true transformation will happen.
Yeah.
It is found that one of the reasons why the blue zones are the blue zones and the blue zones have the longest living individuals in the world is because they hang out in communities a lot more. They have very strong bonds with family and friends and community and tribe, right? And that's how learning also works. Learning works better when you are in the community. I was watching, if you have watched, there's a series on National Geographic called Genius. It's the story of Einstein.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in that, if you watch that series, and I think the first or the second episode itself, it shows Einstein, I think it's the first episode, Einstein used to study in this German university where every teacher would kind of beat down his idea and throw him out of the class if he would question things, right? Where else he goes to this Swiss university, which I'm missing the name, I think it was Switzerland Polytechnic University, something like that. He goes there where he's encouraged to ask questions, initially at least. Right? And then he finds this woman who is also really smart. He ends up marrying her, and friends who are also supportive of his genius or his intelligence. Yeah. And from that guy who was getting thrown out of the class and barely made through college in his previous schooling, he all of a sudden becomes one of the most promising polytechnics of that time, physicists of that time. What changed? One of the big things that changed is the community. Right? So community empowers people to be able to learn better, show up better. So if you can create a great community around your product, you would have greater tribe members that will, of course, support you and help you take your mission forward. But you would also end up getting greater results because now the people in the community have permission from each other to be able to show up, to be able to ask questions, to be able to be present. And sometimes they will be silent members. They won't talk. They don't always talk. But they're watching, and that's what is important.
They are there.
And learn.
There was a guy, one of my earliest business partners, and we were running an organic health and food shop that we had here in London. And there is something that he taught me that I will remember forever, which is build your community first, and the community will build your business. And what he was doing, he was creating every year a festival where it was growing organically more than 1,000 plants of tomatoes here in London on a rooftop of a shop. And I was watering them every year while working with them. And was a way to bring the community together and a lot of people think about all online communities right now and Facebook groups and so on, but that's so real in the real world, where you bring people together, as in the online world for an online product, or other type of services that you're saying. So this what you said right now triggered my memory of me watering the plants for for the tomato festival. Uh,
Mhm.
Now, we've been talking about building products. We have been talking about growing your expert business. And now it's
Mhm.
time to wrap up this interview, because we almost reached the time. What I want to know, because I know that you released a new book as well, which is the book of coaching. And also
Mhm.
you have a lot of trainings and you have a lot of free classes for people
Mhm.
that they want to grow their coaching and expert business. So where can
Mhm.
people get in touch with you and access your material?
So the best place to go is just go to evercoach.com, Evercoach, evercoach.com. And when you go to evercoach.com, you'll be able to find free trainings all over the website. So it's basically there's a tab there which will take you to free trainings. You can sign up for it based on the topic that you want to go through, and you can experience those trainings. They're all about hours to 90 minutes long, and they're very content heavy. So these are not webinars, these are actual trainings. You actually go out with the result that is promised in the training. So it's very, very specific. This is one more thing that we focus on a lot as a product, is that even our free trainings is extremely, extremely powerful. We don't hold anything back. So that's evercoach.com. Go there. That's the easiest thing to get started with. Secondly, if you're a reader, if you like to read books, and if you like to listen to books, go to thebookofcoaching.com. Thebookofcoaching.com. It'll redirect you to the Evercoach page, which has offer for you. It's like, I think, $4 or something. We give it away pretty much at no profit. It's just our gift to the world. So go ahead and get the book of coaching. That probably is going to be one of those turning points for your coaching business and your training business, for you to be able to see a very different perspective on how you can constantly continue to explode your coaching and training business.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Make sure that you click the link that are going to be in the show notes and also in the blog post that we write about this interview. So get all your resources, get the book of coaching, get the training, because as you heard from this interview, there is a lot that we can do, just small things that can make a massive difference to improve our product, to improve our services, to improve our brand. And definitely following Evercoach is one of the smartest decisions that you can make today. So do it right now. Ajit, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful interview. Thank you for being with us at Explode Your Expert Biz today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for listening. Make sure that you click right now that juicy button that is written subscribe. Do it right now. I know it's calling you. And also, let me know about what did you enjoy the most from this interview with Ajit that we did today. Leave us a review, and I'm going to read one of your reviews in our next episode. Before we leave, remember one thing, that together we grow exponentially. Ciao!